All right, well, we're back, finally. I'm back in the saddle, playing some different music this time, because why not? Made sure it was royalty free before using it on stream. YouTube's a little bit more strict with the copyright hammer, so I'm being a little bit more careful. A little bit, not very much. I'm gonna stop the music now. But yeah, we are going to review some shit today. I actually have a plan this time. Oh god, my overlay is just not working. I think I'm just gonna turn it off. That's fine. Just go ahead and turn that off. Yeah, we're good. Okay, I don't need it because chat's not gonna be on stream this time anyway, because it's not set up correctly to do that. It's fine. Everything's fine. But yeah, today we are going to be reviewing a Jubilee video, which means we're going to be looking into some stupid shit. So today, for the first time in a while, I'm going to be reacting to some funny little content, and you all get to watch. There's no one in chat right now. I'm just saying this to the aether in case anyone ends up watching this VOD at some point in the future. I just want to be, you know, keeping up the energy a little bit so you're not bored the whole fucking time. Anyway, I'm so liberated. I can say the bad words now that I'm not on Twitch. Even just swearing too much. Even just swearing too much, and that'll fuck you over on Twitch. It's not great. Anyway, we're starting now. So, this is the video It's called, what is it called? It's called Do All Autistic People Think the Same? Spectrum. So today, we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be seeing how they think, what they think about that. And I'm just going to go ahead and full screen this. Oh boy, I got to reset the, I got to do some stuff real quick. And there we go. That's better. All right. So I thought we could look at this because while I'm not necessarily certain that I'm on the spectrum myself, I do have some autistic tendencies, and I do know a few autistic people. So I thought I might have some words to say on it, because I thought that would be a fun time for me to stream something, just generally. Anyway, I'm going to stop justifying my decision here, and I'm going to get into it. Let's see what this video is about.
Hey good humans, Jason here, and we've got a big announcement. Today we're dropping another collection of human...
I'm just going to go ahead and skip this first part because it's just them shilling their merch. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's here.
Enjoy the episode.
Personally, like if I'm going to refer to myself, I'm going to say autistic person, but you can say either or and I won't give a crap.
Okay. Spicy. We're starting out spicy. We invited 7 people with autism to see the range of their values and beliefs. All right.
My name's Jay. I'm 19. I was diagnosed late with autism. You know, there's no way to look autistic. It's just a whole spectrum of people.
Yeah.
I'm Josiah. I'm 18. At first, I was really unsure about it because it sounded like it was bad, but I started to realize that autism is more like me than it is a disease.
My name is Shayna Crashen. I'm 23. Autism is more prevalent than people think, and
she looks very well put together. I'll say that. She looks very well put together, which, isn't unusual for autistic people, in all fairness. A lot of them are almost like, not obsessive about their appearance, but they're like, they have a very particular way of like dressing themselves and putting themselves together, which is, I think, very pleasant. Like, they just have a very individual way of doing it, as opposed to many people who are rather, what's the word, influenceable about how they dress and what their whole deal is. Anyway, let's continue.
More aware and acceptable towards it. It'll just be a lot easier for everybody.
Love the dance moves, by the way.
I am Christopher Carroll. I am 38 years old. I like to act. Is that not related to autism?
I guess not. I mean, it could be. It's definitely something to be brought up at some point.
I'm Yoni, I'm 19, and I am an artist of all types. I really am proud to have autism. It makes me see the world differently, and that's totally awesome.
My name is Joseph. Just because I communicate different doesn't mean I do not understand.
I'm really glad they decided to include this guy. I'm really glad they decided to include this guy, because different communication styles are important to represent and shit like this. I will say, however, that it's going to be very awkward when he's answering questions, which, I mean, is to be expected.
My name is Bella. I'm 22 years old. In high school, I couldn't really talk, so I was like nonverbal. I've just become more confident in myself and being able to talk to other people. That's pretty nice.
I think a lot of people who have that sort of thing where they'll like go completely silent for a prolonged period of time, I think a lot of those people have sort of that like social problem of just like people not being very caring towards them or very like communicative with them. Or maybe they are communicative with them, but like the only thing they communicate is that they dislike them, which is, kind of an issue to have. as a child, as an adolescent, as they say. But yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people have problems with it just because it's a very common thing to have a problem with. Not like the staying silent thing, but like communication. It's a super common problem, even for neurotypical people.
I consider the term special offensive. 3, 2, 1, go.
I do find it.
Okay. Let's talk about the layout of people that just expressed their opinion for a second. Most of them went to the right, which is agreeing with the statement that they find it offensive. Right. Okay, so that's normal, I think. It's a very deriding term. It's derogatory most of the time, and even when it's not, it's patronizing as fuck. So I wouldn't exactly say that I disagree with them. I do find it incredibly patronizing whenever anyone uses the term special for anyone, actually. I just find it just very abrasive. It's just very... It is what it is. Anyway, let's continue.
To be somewhat of a bad label, this person is special, as in too different to function, I guess. It's like when I perform, in the performances I've been in, people begin to whisper in the audience, whisper among themselves. Was that person special or not?
Okay. Immediately my thoughts jump to, what kind of performances are you in? Like, a lot of autistic people have hyperfixations, right? Like they will really get into something, and it can be something as general as like acting, or it can be something as specific as like a web comic from 2007 that only ran like 2 years, and then the artist stopped drawing it, but they're like still obsessed with it. Or maybe they just got obsessed with it and they're continuing to be obsessed with it for a prolonged period of time. And that can happen for months or years or however long it can stay that way. You know, hyperfixation is a really interesting subject, but I won't get too into it. Let's continue.
And that seems a little harsh to me.
It is a little harsh. Calling someone who's performing on stage special is kind of fucked. Very fucked. Anyway.
Special could be used as something good, but it can also be used as, you know, something like, oh, like, why aren't you hanging out with them? Oh, because they're special.
Yep. That's most of the use, unfortunately. That is the majority of the use cases for the term special. But anyway,
like, you know, like they're the other, they're less than, and we're not less than, we're different.
I feel like it can make
that's the thing a lot of people don't get about autism. It's called a disorder. Realistically, though, the reason it's called that is because the world is structured in such a way that it's not immediately obvious to people with autism that they're supposed to act a certain way, because they just don't think like that. Like, I mean, people with autism have a lot of social problems, but that's primarily because of the structure of the current social climate, and it could be much better for them if we could all, like, accommodate people a little bit better, because most people are real bad at accommodation. Anyway, let's continue.
Neurotypical people feel better, like it's like the right word to say, and like it just sounds nicer to them, but in reality I think it's just more offensive if you're like using it with that kind of tone and inflection.
When I think about special in the terms of autism, I think about special ed, And for me, it's like, why is it special?
I mean, that's probably where that whole thing originated from. But yeah.
To have some extra accommodations or to learn a different way. Like, it's not special ed, it's extra support ed.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I was saying, accommodation is important. That's kind of the thing. This is going to be the theme of this stream, I suspect. It's going to be a lot of talking about how normal people just don't accommodate people with any type of difference that they don't recognize or understand.
The word special can mean pretty much anything. It's just the way that people take it, and I don't think that's fair.
It's just the way that people take it? I mean, yeah, everything is just the way that people take it. It's not like you're forced to interpret something in that way. Like, also, I don't like this frame. Everyone's looking back at him as he types the thing. This is what I was talking about when I said it was going to get awkward. This is it.
We are all special.
I like that answer.
Oh, okay. Joseph's behavioral therapist is the guy right here. This is the guy. I'm covering up his face. Hold on. Let me move myself. There you go. You can see him now. There he is. I'm going to put my face back over his. I'm going to make my face cam a little bit smaller because it's a little large right now. Move it over a little bit. All right, we should be good now. I have a feeling that the communication issues that a lot of people have are just mostly because the way that we raise people, we don't teach them how to communicate with people who don't communicate in the same way as them. We just sort of let them figure it out. And most people don't do that or don't choose to do that because, let's be totally honest here, guys. Nobody wants to learn how to communicate with someone who's hard to communicate with. Nobody wants to do that. Unless you're, like, related to them or they're, like, your partner, in which case you probably do want to do that. But that's, like, a little rare because there's only so many people with, like, incredibly difficult communication issues. Because other than that, like, you're never really taught in school how to communicate with people who have communication issues. You're always really sort of taught that like specifically you should be like, you should act a certain way. Not only that, you should act a certain way. You should not step outside of that bubble, and that you should absolutely never, ever talk to someone who's weird. And that's what school teaches you. People who talk about school as if it's like this place that you go to learn how to socialize with other people. It's not that it's not that helpful. School is one of the worst places to learn how to interact with other people because the things you learn to do, like in relation to other people in school. Oh shit. Okay. The things you learn to do when it comes to like talking to other people in school is you shun everyone who's not like very similar to you. Some schools are different in this manner, but like, I don't know if it matters that much if you live in a city with a well-funded school or in a like city or town with a pretty badly funded school. But like most of the time, school's not going to teach you very good things about socializing unless you get very lucky and have some very good friends, because the things that I've heard from people that are still in school today are fucking horrible. Like they just don't have that many friends anymore. They just kind of have to figure it out themselves, which is really fucking bad for somebody who's that age. Anyway, rant over. I'm going to continue with the video. I have trouble making friends. Hey, this is related! Fuck yeah! The rant was related. Let's continue. Yeah. Wait, is this behavioral therapist, like, stepping... is he, like... That's kind of fucked. I guess if you're, like, extremely autistic to the point where you can't really... where you, like, don't really get what's going on, and your behavioral therapist knows you well enough to, like, understand that you'd probably would choose this, then I guess that's fine, but that's a little weird still. Like, yeah, come over here, buddy. Come over here, buddy. Yeah. I just... No. Absolutely not. Oh, wait. Oh. We have a spread here. We have a spread, people.
It's hard for me to make friends because I am nonverbal.
Yeah, that's... Again, definitely a roadblock to communication is being nonverbal. Or, you know, mute or whatever you want to call it. Mute sort of implies a physical inability to talk, but, you know, you can be mute with still having the vocal cords and everything that you need to be able to produce vocal noises. It's just doing that is probably pretty difficult for a lot of people that have this specific problem. Anyway.
Yeah, I didn't really start making friends until I started college because I wasn't, like, in a lot of activities and stuff. I just always wanted to be by myself, and I always found it hard to talk to people.
For the longest time, especially when I was in middle school, I had a bit of a hard time making friends, and so I was basically on my own for a while. But until I went to junior high, I went to a private school. Their whole entire goal was to basically, like, make a community that are just trying to find friends and stuff like that. So that's why I'm on this somewhat...
Oh, is he moving?
Disagree, because it's like I have plenty of friends now, but in the long run, when it came down to middle school, I had a really rough time.
I honestly don't have trouble making friends. I talk to everyone I meet, and everyone I meet I kind of make friends with.
Okay. This is the thing. If you're autistic and you, like, get how socialization works, it does not mean that you're not autistic. I want to specify that real quick, because some people might be assuming that. If you're autistic and you are, like, fine when it comes to socializing with other people, you probably still have some weird, like, social habits that other people might find a little off-putting. But this is the thing. Most people can choose to accommodate that. It's just that most people don't. And if you seem overtly friendly and not overtly fucking very nervous about talking to other people and making social connections, it's gonna be a lot easier for you to, like, exist. So I would suggest you do that if you can, because it's a good idea. Anyway.
I don't know, it just comes naturally to me. I just say, hey, let's be friends. And they're like, yeah. And
also, don't be fake about it. Like, don't force yourself to be social with other people if you don't want to. If you're, like, incredibly introverted, don't, like, force yourself into social situations, because that will inevitably lead to you being, like, feeling like shit about it, because it's not a good idea to do that.
It happens.
When you first meet somebody, I'm good at the initial, like, talking and friend thing, but it's when, like, the long term and, you know, it just gets too complicated. And then, like, also I just find, like, I don't like a lot of people, and so, like, of course not a lot of people are gonna like me, so it's just so it's just, like, some would agree.
Well,
the dance moves coming out again. Very nice. This person, I think, probably is able to make friends, but the thing is, I feel like the quality of the friendships might not be so great. Maybe they're fine. I don't know. I don't know this person's life. But a lot of people who have, like, social problems and shit, who make friends regardless of that, especially if they're, like, fairly introverted, like this person probably is, to some extent. I could just kind of get that vibe. Especially when you're, like, fairly introverted and you sort of try to not distance yourself from, but, like, sort of keep a healthy, like, 6-foot gap, social distance, a little bit from most people. I mean, it's not, like, a bad strategy for getting friends, but the people who will cross that gap despite you doing that are gonna be, like, in one of 2 groups, one of, like, 2 or 3 groups. And the first one is sort of just, like, the most innocuous one. It's just curious people. The second one is sort of the bad one, which is to say, people who will take advantage of you and make you feel like shit for being manipulated. There's a lot of those. A lot of them. Not that many of them, but there's quite a bit. There's quite a few of them, and they can sniff you out very easily. They know who to target. They are pieces of shit, and oftentimes they are also victims of abuse themselves. Just saying. And the third group, of course, is just people who want to make friends with you because they think you're cool. Which is, you know, the normal response, I think, to meeting someone and them not being a total asshole.
I guess for me, it's just, I also have social anxiety, so it's never been easy for me to make friends, but sometimes I just feel better being by myself and doing my own thing. And when you go out and you meet people, you have to really push yourself to, you know, to know what to say and to know what not to do, and you don't stim and stuff like that, so it's just harder.
Stimming, the repetition of physical movement, sounds, or words. Okay, this is from Wikipedia. Yes, stimming is a thing. I do it sometimes when I'm in conversations I feel uncomfortable with. And it is basically just what you see on the screen. It's just the practice of getting emotional energy out through physical repetition of some kind of something. You know, you might be saying a word, you might be, like, tapping your foot on the ground. That's a very common one even for neurotypical people. And so another common one for neurotypical people is, like, fiddling with their hands and shit like that. And that is stimming. Not autistic people do stim a lot more than neurotypical people, but neurotypical people also stim. It's not something that's exclusive to autistic people. It's not even something that's exclusive to autistic and neurotypical people. A bunch of different, like, you know, like, neuroatypicality stuff will cause you to stim more or less often depending on sort of the way that your brain is structured and how you deal with your emotions. And it's different for everyone, so that's just sort of how that works most of the time.
To go out and have that whole mental energy put towards that when you can just be yourself by yourself. But I do have some friends, so that's why I'm here, not there.
Yeah, you can see here she is stimming, like, at that moment.
So that's why I'm here, not there.
Sort of bouncing up and down a little bit, just sort of like probably like raising the. Anyway, you can probably guess what's happening. Stimming, repetitive physical thing. Anyway,
I have a similar problem. When I was younger, I had social phobia, and I spent a lot of childhood just living or playing inside my own head, which didn't exactly seem to help me with people skills.
Yeah, it can trigger things. It can, like, trigger a meltdown like you don't want to have to deal with.
Sensory issues.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah, I was just saying I feel, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? A lot of it is just learning how to socialize a little bit better, but the problem is the way that you learn that is to socialize. So a lot of people don't get enough practice because people who are introverted or, you know, have trouble with social skills, which is, I think, what introverted actually translates to. Most of the time, they're not, like, actively having a problem with people. Most of the time, they're just sort of passively not having a great time dealing with the, like, the thoughts in their head and shit about, like, how they're holding their hands or, like, you know, the way that their body is positioned and shit like that. Like, a lot of it is, like, self-consciousness about that kind of shit, which is normal, to be fair. But it is also kind of a problem if you are super self-conscious about that kind of stuff. Because if you are, it's very easy to stay that way, which is not great for fairly obvious reasons.
Being diagnosed with autism helped me understand myself more. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, what do we got? Wow! Holy shit. Oh my god. Yeah, that's, by the way, behind my face cam here, behind my face cam here, you can see their Instagram poll is a 90 to 10%, so it's basically the same ratio as this. So there's that. Yeah, that's quite the ratio right there. L plus ratio. Okay, thank God there's daylight. Okay, I'm just gonna use that as backlight. This is fine. Not that I didn't expect the daylight to be there, but it's fucking weird around here. The weather's been screwed.
For years and years, I was wondering, like, why is the music in the car where no one else is saying it's loud? Why is it hurting me? Why can't I make friends easily? Why am I not picking up on sarcasm? I feel like
I had all of those problems. I have had all of those problems in the past. I get very oversensitive to loud music. Even if it's music I like, I'll get, like, somewhat sensitive to the volume of it. That's calmed down a little bit, but, like, it's mainly based upon, like, whether or not whether or not I personally ears. It's basically just mostly whether or not I personally have dealt with it's basically like whether or not I personally care for or about what's being played. Like, if someone's playing very loud music through speakers, but I like the music, it'll probably be fine. But if they're playing very loud music through the speakers and I'm even just kind of indifferent to it, it will hurt me. It will hurt my ears. Even music that I like, if it's too loud, it'll hurt my ears. Which, I mean, that's the case for everyone. But, like, I used to go to this, like, mega church, and their music was so fucking loud. I don't know how the people closer to the front weren't, like, needing earplugs and shit. It was really bad. And no one else cared at all. But I'm pretty sure that the people who were closer to the front probably did lose a little bit of hearing just from that, because it was loud as hell. In all fairness, though, that's religion for you. You know, You get roped into some kind of fucked up shit. Also, I just noticed that this guy's taken away the, like, communication device here. Like, he has it. The, like, behavioral therapist, he has it. And this autistic guy, the communicational problems, is just sort of here.
Really did help me understand myself because I stopped feeling so bad.
Oh, he's doing, like, arm signals. Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, I guess that, I mean, like, learning sign language if you're nonverbal probably would be pretty good. But if you're, like, to the point where you gotta, like, type out what you want to say on a thing and have it say it for you, sign language probably is gonna still be a problem for you because it still involves, like, your facial expressions and shit like that, which autistic people tend to have a problem with generally. But yeah.
My body and brain sometimes work against each other.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a thing that a lot of people have problems with. And most of the time, it is a temporary thing when it comes to, like, panic attacks and shit like that. If you're having a panic attack, your body might just sort of stop working with you a little bit. Like, your heart rate can go up while you're mentally stressed and you just can't get it back down for a bit. And then you, like, feel like you're trapped in a box and can't breathe and shit like that, which is, you know, classic panic attack behavior. It's great. It's my favorite thing. But, you know, like, if you're going through that kind of thing, it can be very difficult to, like, get back into normalcy. Whereas for some people, like this guy, like Joseph, it's, like, semi-permanent as a problem where, like, most of the time their body just doesn't work with them, and so they'll just sort of, like, flail sometimes, which, I mean, flailing isn't the best word for it. It's just sort of like a fucked version of them trying to communicate, which is difficult for them, to be fair.
When I first read what are they called? Like, it's not symptoms. Like,
Criteria.
What?
Criteria.
Yeah, the criteria for autism. It was, like, mind-blowing because it was like reading something that I didn't even know existed and could be put into words. Like I said, I thought everybody was just dealing with it and hiding it better. And I've turned to so much more self-love since I found out about my diagnosis just 2 years ago. It's just been, like, probably...
She was diagnosed 2 years ago. She was 19, I think, when she was introduced. Yeah, I think 19.
the most freeing thing for me.
I actually use that.
I think I can just go back.
Something that I didn't even know. It's not symptoms. Like,
Criteria.
Okay, they don't show you the age again.
Like I
Never
said,
mind.
I thought everybody was just dealing with it and hiding it better. And I've turned to so much more self-love since I found out about my diagnosis just 2 years ago. It's just been, like, probably the most freeing thing for me.
I actually used to have meltdowns, like, daily. I would just get so angry and nobody knew why.
Yeah.
And I didn't know.
Yeah, so autistic people have meltdowns where basically it's like, I don't exactly know because I haven't really experienced that myself. I mean, I might have. I just don't know. But, like, most of the time it's like an overflow of just mental energy and emotion and shit like that, and most often it is also while they're, like, stressed and, like, not having a great time, which a lot of people misunderstand that, where it's like, oh, this person's stressed out. What are they stressed out about? Most of the time it's some fucking stupid bullshit, which is normal to get stressed out about, in all fairness. But most of the time it is some kind of stupid bullshit where it's like, why are you stressed out about that? That's really kind of weird and not very helpful, or it's kind of stupid. Like, why are you stressed out about that? From the outside, that's what it looks like. But if you were, like, in the internal space of that person's mind, you would understand why they're stressed out. Because intrusive thoughts are some major bullshit, I gotta say. It's one of the very few things that I can confidently attest to when it comes to, like, autism and stuff like that. Intrusive thoughts are a problem for everyone. But for autistic people and, like, people with ADHD and shit like that, people with OCD, that kind of shit is a, like, hourly thing to deal with. Like, you have to deal with it all the fucking time. Like, you have to be in lockstep with your brain. Oh, shit. I will be right back, stream. All right, we are back again. Had a call from someone I had to yoink to real quick. So yeah, I had to take care of that briefly. But let's get back to it. So we're talking about people with autism. We're talking about, I think it was autistic meltdowns. Yeah. Like, I think I was talking about intrusive thoughts. Yeah. So basically, everyone has problems with intrusive thoughts. For many people, it's more severe than for most people. Just be aware. People with, like, autism, ADHD, OCD, all have, like, different brain patternings that allow intrusive thoughts to interfere with their ability to think about normal shit and do normal shit on like a constant basis, and they kind of have to deal with that all the time. I think for autistic people it's maybe a little bit more mild than for people with ADHD or OCD, because those are, like, specifically dealing with, like, attention, which is sort of, if you can't pay attention to anything because of the intrusive thoughts in your brain, that's kind of a problem. Although many autistic people also do have ADHD or OCD or sometimes both, which is just fucked because they have to deal with all of those problems at the same time, and it just makes it even worse. But anyway, let's continue.
Things would just pop it off.
And I realized that after I got diagnosed with autism, everybody around me noticed how less angry and how less my meltdowns were, because you start to know how to prevent them, because you start to know what's making you melt down.
Well, I think I have to say I somewhat disagree because I've not actually been diagnosed. No one's tested me for autism. So what do we go by? Just simply what a doctor happens to say on any given day? Or
this is kind of like, he's right. Like, if you very obviously have a disorder, getting a diagnosis is just an excuse to get treatment from a doctor, okay? But like, if you definitely do have a disorder, I mean, it's good to get a diagnosis. Don't like not get diagnosed, because if you can get diagnosed, then do. Like, if you can go to a doctor and have them like be able to go through the steps with you and be like, hey, you probably have ADHD, or you probably are autistic, you probably have like depression or whatever, that's going to help you, because you might not have recognized that you have some of those problems. And I think a lot of people would benefit from recognizing that they have the problems that they have, just generally. Yeah, I did turn that off. Okay, good. So I can put the mic a little closer to my face.
What made you want to come today?
a few doctors have said I have autism, although at least twice as many doctors I've known have said I do not.
What do you believe?
As of now, I believe I do have autism somewhere, but...
That's kind of the thing, though, is that especially if you're an adult, autism is kind of one of those things that's really hard to diagnose. Like, diagnosing ADHD in adults. Most of the time, if you're getting diagnosed with autism or ADHD, it's going to be when you're like 5 or 12. Like, very early in your life. If your parents take you to the doctor to get diagnosed and like they notice that you have behavioral differences from other people. Oh, wait, hold on. I thought I was going to sneeze. I'm good. Yeah. Ugh.
I can't say I agree with the diagnosis because I don't actually have a diagnosis.
Are you planning?
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. Doctors will tell you that you definitely have something, but they won't officially diagnose you. It's kind of fucked. Because if a doctor is like, yeah, you probably have like you probably have like this physical problem, like you probably have type 2 diabetes or whatever, like you're probably going to consider that a diagnosis, right? But no, if he's saying probably, that means that he's not legally liable for that. He's giving you medical advice because he's a doctor, but like, you know, if a doctor says you probably have this, they probably don't fully know if you have it or not, and you should definitely ask them in a little bit more detail, like, what do you mean? Like, are you sure about that? Like, what's the symptoms? What do I fit in this? Like, don't inherently doubt them. Don't, like, be like, I don't believe you. Like, that's fucking stupid. But, like, do maybe, like, kind of try to give a little bit of feedback to your doctor, especially if it's a psychiatrist, because they rely on your feedback to be able to diagnose you. Fun fact. because that's how diagnosis works. If they can analyze your like behavioral patterns, if they can analyze, if they have a larger sample of talking to you to analyze, they can probably more reliably diagnose you with something. Because let's be totally honest, a 60-minute like session with a psychiatrist is not going to fill them in on everything that's happened in your life unless you've had a somewhat uneventful life, kind of like I have. But like if you've gone through like 12 years of public school or whatever, or if you've gone through like, you know, your entire childhood, you probably have some shit to talk to the doctor about. Just because you've been through those experiences, you might have actually come up with your own theories, which might help them actually diagnose you. Because your analysis of your own situation is a part of the process of you getting diagnosed. Because they need to know what you think about your situation in general to understand what's going on with you.
Can you get one in the future?
I don't know anyone who will give me one.
That's a big issue, actually. They're crazy expensive and crazy hard to get.
That's
It's like a whole ordeal.
I got one from my psychiatrist because I was already under his care.
Yeah, it really does help me, especially to find a different route with education. Like, I had a huge problem with mathematics and stuff like that. And now after I got diagnosed and I'm going to the school that helps typically with autism, it's like now I'm doing statistics. It does really help. It really helps me to understand how my brain works and how I can get help. So.
And because I know that my brain works differently, I see the world in a more creative aspect, thinking outside of the box, and I'm over here like I'm outside of the
You can't even find the box.
Out of the box? I'm outside of the circle. I'm in the galaxy, excuse me. The shapes are around me and I'm outside of all of them.
I think this person, they might, yeah, that's definitely, yeah, anyway, the sort of, I don't know, the more, what was I going to talk about? Yeah, the process of getting diagnosed, right? Like, getting diagnosed is really fucking hard. Even if you are able to pay for it, most people are not able to pay for it. But even if you are, waiting for the doctor to be able to get an appointment with you, because they're all on waiting lists, every single one of them. Like, unless you can, like, pay, like, in full yourself or through, like, private insurance, which is also fucking expensive as hell, especially if it covers psychological shit. If you, like, yourself are able to pay for it, you should probably be able to get an appointment pretty soon, but, like, most people aren't able to pay for a psychological appointment, especially, like, a diagnosis appointment. I need to get something to eat soon. Oh, fuck. But yeah, no, the idea that you can just go to the doctor and get a diagnosis is just incorrect, at least in North America. I don't know how it is in Bong land, in Brit Bong land. But I will say it's probably easier in countries where they have government-funded programs to, you know, give people the ability to go see a psychiatrist and not wait on a waiting list for 8 months. Totally not dealing with this problem right now, by the way. Totally. Yeah, I'm trying to get diagnosed with ADHD, and it is not a fun time. Why specifically ADHD? I don't know what my other problems are, but that's definitely one of them. That's basically it. Anyway.
It bothers me when people pity me.
I would be very surprised if anyone disagrees with this statement. Let's go.
2, 1, go.
Come on. You're kidding. No.
I get pity for a lot of things. Because I don't have only autism, I have multiple mental illnesses and medical conditions too, and everyone, when I like tell them all of them, they're like, how can you be happy? Your life sounds difficult. I'm like, it's not that, like, it's just what I know. It doesn't have to be the end of my world, and I don't like getting pity for the things I have, because just because I'm disabled doesn't mean my life necessarily sucks because of that.
Yeah,
By the way, we were talking about the word special earlier. The correct term is disabled. That is the correct term. If you have a disability, if you cannot function normally in society, you are disabled. Whether you're missing a leg or autistic or anything. You can also say that autism isn't necessarily a disability. It's just kind of a different brain patterning. But as far as our current society, it is a disability because people with autism are not catered to enough in current society. So it is a disability of sorts. Like, until we can get people on fucking exoskeleton robot legs, being in a wheelchair is a disability. Like, that's... Like, up until that point, it's going to be a disability. And until we can, like, fit people with fucking robotic bodies and shit like that, being, like, quadriplegic is a disability, which is obvious. But, you know, like, no one's bothered by saying that someone who has to, like, roll around in a wheelchair has a disability. But when you talk about people with autism having a disability, people go, wait a minute, hold on, that's not correct. But no, it is correct, because the way that you define disability, it is, you know, sort of mostly subjective. But additionally, there is kind of a societal definition for it as far as like infrastructure is concerned. Infrastructure and like policy and shit, the kind of shit that actually matters when you're considering it. But yeah, just be careful about that shit, because most people, I'll say this much, kind of have a problem with that a little bit. You know, like, a lot of people just don't understand that the word disability doesn't just apply to people in wheelchairs. Like, this is the disabled parking spot. This is for people that can't walk. It's also for all the other people who have disabilities, by the way. That is what it's for. If you have a disability card that you put up in your fucking car, that spot is yours. You use that spot. I mean, you can use another spot too. That's fine. If you feel like it's demeaning to use the disabled spot, like, you can do that too. That's fine. But yeah, the fact that even one person disagreed with this is surprising. Anyway, let's get to that.
I said someone disagree because I grew up like really obsessively masking. I don't think people pity me. I think the opposite. I think people have very high expectations of me because I can kind of mask and present that. I think that most people forget I'm autistic and don't treat me with some of the help I need and have a lot less patience for it. And so I don't know how much I'm pitied. More of the time I'm not believed.
Okay, quick thing. Masking was a term that was thrown out there. We don't really have that defined, so I'm going to define it for you if you're not aware of what it means. Masking is when someone with any like social disability or like social abnormality even will act as if they don't have that problem, but like internally they still do. It's just that they're acting like they don't, so that they're not, like, discriminated against in any way. Like, someone who has autism going into a normal public school that is, you know, not very well funded or even very well funded, but like not very socially conscious. If you like have autism in that space, it is very much encouraged for you to be like other people are and not be like you are around other people, because you will definitely be seen as weird for it. Now, if it's a big enough school with like enough kids attending, that might not be the case, but that's only if they're actually like sociable and shit. Because if there's like an autistic clique of people, that's it's probably the weird kid group. It's probably the group of kids that's seen as weird by everyone else, because everyone else is just not very understanding of that kind of way of thinking and existing. And I haven't been part of many of those groups because I haven't gone to a school really in my life. But for the most part, I definitely empathize with people who have been in those groups, because, I mean, online, I have basically exclusively been in those groups. Like, I basically never really interact with people that are, like, on Instagram talking about celebrities and shit. It's mostly about, like, looking up videos about video games and, like, 3-hour-long video essays about some obscure topic, which is just an extremely autistic rabbit hole to jump down, I gotta say. But anyway, let's continue.
I've even had like
change in opinion. There we go.
Therapists try to like convince me I'm not. I have to like teach them about it, and then they say I'm not. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I can see how this opinion would surface here. Yeah. If you're with your therapist and you're talking to them about how you need to mask all the time, and they're like, well, then you just don't have autism if you can just act like a normal person. That's not how autism works. If you have autism, then you just like physically can't act like a normal person. That's just how autism works. That is not how autism works. That is not at all how autism works. Autism is just a different brain patterning. It is how you think, not how you act. Because you can act however you want, regardless of your brain patterning, with some caveats, of course. I mean, like, there's the nonverbal guy in the back who's, you know, not really able to act like a normal person because he can't fucking talk. And of course, there's a bunch of people who have like Tourette's syndrome and shit like that, where they'll like randomly blurt some shit out, which is actually a fairly uncommon version of Tourette's, by the way, where they'll have like the verbal tics. But most people with Tourette's have like physical like action tics, where they'll like do some sort of thing over and over again, and it gets worse if you bottle it up. They can choose to bottle it up, but it gets worse. Like, that urge just keeps going forward. It's like an itch they have to scratch. And I also have tics as well, like physical tics, no verbal shit. Like, most people have some amount of most, like, disorders. It's just that it's normally a very low amount, is the thing. And it's normally a very, like, you know, not extremely impactful amount of severity. Like, if you are on the autistic spectrum, you might be so close to being, like, neurotypical, like, normal, that you basically don't look or sound like you're autistic, but you do have some of those traits. And that's where I think I'm at, because, like, I get hyperfixated. I have, like, the stimming thing. like a bunch of stuff. Like the way that I interact with other people is non-standard. And I think about things in very, very concrete, like ways of thinking about them. Like everything is sort of organized in very specific ways. Like all the conceptual shit is very like this is the way that it goes, and if it goes any other way, then it's wrong. Which is also a thing that autistic people do. Like as far as just brain patterning.
Over here, Judd. Up against the mic.
I can't change the way I am, so instead of pity, I want people to try to understand and accept me the way I am.
It's also just like, don't pity me, like be with me, like be with me in the moment, like don't feel bad for me, like as if you can't do any, like treat me like I am just a normal person.
I am so sorry I have to go out on this limb here, but what the fuck is up with this hair, man? What the fuck is going on? This is the messiest bun I've ever seen in my life. Holy shit. Like, it looks fine, but this line of hair that you've got in this bun is unacceptably jagged. I mean, if you're going for that aesthetic, fine, but holy shit.
So, like, growing up, people used to, like, baby me, and now, like, I look at being 22, I look back, and it's like, they just should have probably treated me like a normal child.
Yeah. This is the thing that a lot of people forget when they're trying to accommodate people with disabilities. It's that it's not like they're less than, like, less of a person than you are. It's not like they're, like, a dog or an animal. It's not like they're a small fucking child. And this is, like, mostly in reference to people with, like, you know, communication disabilities and shit like that. Where, like, outwardly they seem like they're just stupid. But, you know, realistically they're not. Like, they're just fine. I will say I don't like the general tendency for people to be, you know, like the very overly judgmental of someone who's trying to, like, not be pitied because, like, they feel like they're being too uppity about it or whatever the fuck, which is something that happens to minorities generally, but disabled people especially.
Because that can be a hindrance in itself, people babying you. That can be another added knock that you don't, you know.
Makes me feel like I can't be my own person.
Yeah.
I used to have that problem with a lot of people. Like, they would be like, oh, it's okay, we're all a little autistic or something like that.
Okay. I do have something to say about this. Most people have at least one trait of, like, every mental illness, because those things are so general that the diagnostic conditions for you to maybe have a mental illness, you have to have a lot of them before you can, like, be absolutely certain that you do definitely have this mental illness, you know? But, like, the fact that some people just don't communicate well, and they don't necessarily have autism, but, like, they're on, like, the more neurotypical side of the spectrum, that's normal. That's a normal thing. However, the saying, we're all a little autistic, is kind of fucking demeaning and disrespectful, and you shouldn't say it to people with autism. You just don't do that at all. Just don't. Stop it. Stop it right there. No, absolutely not. Anyway.
And it's like, no, I hate that comment so much, and I get it so many
I
times.
hate that comment too.
Yeah.
We're not all autistic. Just because you have like, you relate to like a couple of the things on the traits doesn't mean that you're autistic necessarily. You have to have
Exactly.
more than just 3 things, you know?
Yeah.
Then you're just being a person. If you just relate to a few, it's like you're human too.
Yeah, wow, you have empathy? That's crazy, bro. Yeah, you're totally autistic. Wow. Whoa, you feel emotions more deeply and like in a more you get overwhelmed by loud noises? Wow. It's almost like that happens to most people.
I would rather not have autism.
This is the sticking point here. Where people lie on this one is going to be very very interesting.
3, 2, 1, go.
Wow! Everyone!
I strongly disagree because if I didn't have autism, I wouldn't be the same exact person.
Part of my identity. Would I really be the same person if I didn't have autism? But I think I have to stick with just somewhat because I haven't actually been diagnosed with autism.
This is kind of the problem that a lot of people with autism have. It's that most people with autism, and broadly, most people with any mental dysfunction don't get diagnosed because we don't have the infrastructure for it set up and ready to go, you know? We just have a lot of psychiatrists who work for like thousands on the hour and shit like that for private insurance. And very few of them will like take time out of their day to like do government work. Like, hey, there's this government funded program. Are you in? No, I have clients that pay me hundreds of dollars per hour. I'm not getting as much from the government, so they can go and fuck themselves. Also, they're more work because they're poor. They're not very incentivized to help people who have problems and who are not maximally rich. Like, seriously, it's a bit of an issue.
So,
Another thing is that the issues and the struggles that like I have with being somebody with autism is like that I encounter day to day mostly have to do with the fact that I'm living in a neurotypical world, not that I have autism, if that makes sense. So I would much rather.
Yep, this is what I was saying earlier. Autism is a disability only because the world is designed for neurotypical people. That's it. That's the only reason. If the world was designed to accommodate to people's differences, no one in this room would be said to have a disability because the world would accommodate the fucking differences that they have. That's what a disability is. The lack of accommodation throughout the normal world that normal people can just glide through like butter. And everyone has a little bit of those problems, so everyone feels a little bit of that problem. But most people don't feel enough of it to actually do anything about it because it doesn't bother them enough. It doesn't put up enough of a roadblock for them to actually need to really do much to actually fix the problem. So they don't need to do that most of the time. They're just like, yeah, fuck it, whatever, it's fine. I'll deal with it.
Live in a world that's more aware of autism or a less neurotypical heavy world.
The thing is, because neurotypical people think in a certain way and because the world is basically designed for them, everything is designed to make neurotypical people just not have to think about anything. So when you have autism or maybe like schizoaffective disorder or any like different brain structure at all, you are forced to think about these things a little bit more because you aren't accommodated in your differences with most other people. And because of that, a lot of autistic people, a lot of people who are just neuroatypical have a lot more social consciousness to them than a lot of neurotypical people do. Like, they get it a little bit more than most people, and that's kind of annoying because a lot of neurotypical people just haven't thought about it that much, which is fine because, you know, they can think about it if they want to. It's just that they have to be made aware that it's something they need to think about. And, you know, advocacy like this, not like this video, although I think probably a lot of neurotypical people have seen this video and probably learned some shit from it, which is good. I thought I was going to get mad at Jubilee. But no, not this time. Not this time around. Could have streamed this on Twitch, but, you know, I like to say the funny words, so it's fine. Twitch would have had a bit of a problem with that, maybe. But anyway, let's continue.
That would be what I would rather change, not changing myself, if that makes sense.
I may have autism, but that makes me who I am, and I wouldn't change it if I had the choice.
Also, yeah, your brain patterning is part of who you are. It's not just like a thing that affects you. It is you. So if you just magically removed the autism from these people, they would not be neurotypical. They would be like mostly fucked, just in general. They would just be gone. Like, most autistic people, the autism is like a thing that they are, not a thing that they just have to deal with. It's also a thing that they have to deal with, but that's just because, again, the world is made for neurotypical people, so you don't really get that much accommodation in that, because everything is designed for people who have a very specific type of brain patterning that most people happen to have, so they just don't have to deal with it as much.
Yes.
Preach, Joe, preach.
Preach, I feel that.
That's why I prefer diagnosis first language, like autistic person, than people with autism, because personally it's like my autism makes up me. It's not just like a part of me. Like my diabetes is a part of me. My pancreas not working doesn't affect the way I act, the way I am, but my autism affects the way I see the world, the way I process, the way I feel things, the way I go about things and socialize. And even though I don't like everything about myself, I don't think that being not autistic would make me love myself suddenly. I think it's just about the fact that I just need to work on accepting myself more in general. So I feel like I'd rather have my autism because it's made me me.
Yeah.
That's, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but if you remove the autism from these people somehow, magically, they would just be less human than they are. They would just become like blank. Because that's the thing. Autism is a very personality-based disorder, and it's... hold on. I gotta... All right, okay. It's a very personality-based disorder. And, like, most disorders are. That's the thing. People with ADHD can medicate their ADHD, or they can, like, learn healthy coping mechanisms. If it's incredibly severe, medicating it is probably a good idea, just so they can function. But the reason why people have ADHD is an evolutionary psychology thing, because, like, prehistoric humans had to deal with different shit individually. Like, they were part of big groups of people, and they had to individually deal with different kinds of things. and someone with ADHD having like all of the problems that they have nowadays, because everyone is expected to act sort of the same way. And we don't really hang out in big groups anymore. We don't really have tribes anymore. I'm not trying to make the anarcho-primitivist argument here. Get away, Ted Kaczynski. Leave. Get out of here. But, no. The main thing is, we as creatures are very social, and we were, like, evolutionarily speaking, we were designed to be around, like, about 150 people, and those were just the people that you were around, and you had to deal with whatever social proclivities they had, and they had to deal with whatever social proclivities you had, and that was it. They had to accommodate you because you were you, regardless of what the rest of the tribe was like. And I guarantee you, most people were not neurotypical back then. Most people had some difference about them that made them more effective in some way that actually did probably help them back then, because that's how evolution works. If you have some genetic trait, like, you know, ADHD is fairly heritable and it is becoming more common, but I think that's probably just because we're diagnosing more of them, not because they're actually increasing in volume of the population. Like that's kind of the way it is with autism as well. Like, people aren't becoming more autistic. It's just that more of them are getting diagnosed with autism. But like, a lot of this shit is very complicated, and the Evo Psych argument can be used in a positive or a negative way, because, you know, the fucking that's right, eugenics, they use Evo Psych arguments to say, like, we must cleanse these people from the gene pool, you know, like, that's maybe not the best idea to follow that line of logic, because you just end up killing a lot of people who are completely innocent and have done nothing wrong except exist, and that's, in my opinion, not something that's wrong of them to do, by the way. I just think that, again, our world is currently structured for people who are neurotypical, pretty much exclusively, and if you don't fit into that bubble, you just have to deal with the differences, and we need to change that, mainly through, like, advocacy and governmental programs and, like, therapy for everyone, because even neurotypical people probably need to go to therapy a bit, because most of them have some pretty unhealthy fucking shit going on. Trust me, I know. I've lived around a few of them. But yeah, no, like, most people have some kind of problem. It's just that most of them don't think it's a problem and don't want to go and see a therapist, because they just think that therapy is for broken people, or people that are, like, PTSD riddled from, like, going to war, even though PTSD is not nearly as exclusive to soldiers as people think it is. Case in point. I got some shit going on with me. Anyway, let's continue with this before I continue my fucking rant.
I would say personally, like, I'm a person with autism, but I also don't care really how people use it. I remember when they started saying, like, autistic person versus person with autism, I was like, oh, okay.
I don't care that
Yeah,
much. It's
exactly.
just if
I
I
don't
had
care
to
either.
pick,
Yeah.
like, you call me either, but if I had to pick personally, like, if I'm gonna refer to myself, I'm gonna say autistic person, but
Yeah.
you can say either or, and I won't.
The thing is, as far as language is concerned, most people don't care. Some people do very much care about the distinction between person with autism and autistic person, because person with autism sort of denotes that you can cure it and that it's something that's wrong with them, and autistic person is just a descriptive term that they have, you know, differences about them, which is important for people to know because otherwise they're not going to be able to accommodate very well. I mean, like if you have previous experience accommodating someone with autism, you might not be able to accommodate someone else who also has autism because they might have different quirks about them as far as their autism that might affect them in a different way. That's kind of the thing, is that you have to individually accommodate for each person. It's not just like, I know how to accommodate for all autistic people I talk to. It's just, you have to be able to accommodate for everyone you talk to, generally. And some people need more accommodation, and some people require that you do not accommodate them at all, and that you don't help them. Just don't do it. And by the way, if you think someone is like that, maybe ask them first before dropping all accommodation. That's probably a better idea than just going like, oh yeah, you're like more like abrasive, so I'm just gonna like talk to you as though you're neurotypical, and just, you know, say whatever comes to mind with zero filter, and just like, you know, talk about whatever, which is also fine. Like you can do that, but like if someone needs accommodation, then they need accommodation, and you should like ask, hey, like what can I do to fucking help you out, you know? And it's not like, what can I do to help you with your stupid problems, you dumb bitch? You shouldn't, the tone should not be obviously like, oh god damn it, I have to help another person. Fuck, I hate this so much. You should probably like try to at least, you know, not be overtly aggressive with it. Like, and also just don't dogmatically do it at all times, because that's also kind of annoying as shit. But anyway, let's get back to the video. I'm ranting again. I'm sorry.
Give a crap. Because to me, I see it as like a neurotypical community being like, oh, we just need to be as nice as we possibly can. And it's
I have predicted every point in this video. To be fair, I have been talking over this 17-minute video for, so far, almost an hour and a half. So, you know, maybe there's some back and forth to be had there, that I've been talking for well over quadruple the duration of this video.
I don't know. I feel like I've never heard an autistic person freak out about it, really. I always hear neurotypical people freaking out about it.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, is that usually the people who have the problem don't care about it that much because it's normal for them, but people who don't have the problem will just kind of assume that it's this big deal that they have to deal with on a daily basis because, of course, they haven't experienced the same things as that person. So they have to, like, they use their own frame of reference, which is inadequate, and it's also all that they have, in all fairness. They use their own, like, neurotypical frame of reference, which is inadequate to sort of get what's going on. And like they'll just like assume that it's this big problem that this person is like autistic or has ADHD or OCD or whatever. And when they zone in on that, it can become very uncomfortable for the person who has that issue, because it's not a problem for them. It's like their life. It's not a temporary thing that they're dealing with, and it's like, oh, I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. Like, I'm so sorry you're autistic. That's horrible. Like, No, bitch. This is how I am. This is me. I am the autism. It's me, bitch. Like that. It's very much a thing of like, this is a part of me that you're saying is like this horrible problem. And it's making me uncomfortable that you're saying it like that. So maybe please stop. Like, please.
I feel connected to other people on the spectrum. 3, 2, 1, go.
I knew the guy in the front was going to disagree. I knew it.
Let's go in here.
Because so far he's been almost contrarian in all of the answers he's given. Which, in all fairness, again, the like insecurity over not being diagnosed thing is very much of a, and I guarantee you he's going to bring it up again, because so far he's brought it up on every other point, or not every other point, but most of the other points.
Well, like, I kind of agree because some people have the same exact things that I go through, but then also somewhat disagree because people, there's like higher functioning and lower functioning, so it's kind of hard to connect to people that are like, I don't know how to say that. Yeah.
I got that, yeah, because they're so different, I guess. It could be, I guess, harder to, connect in some degree, but we may not all go through the same exact things, but as a label, like autism, I think we can all like connect to that, and that's how I feel like with the label, with that label, I feel like there's a good sense of community there.
I do agree. It's like, although we have different stories about how, of autism, I believe that we where we can relate to each other and still like,
Have different perspectives.
yeah, exactly. Because it's like, I feel like, especially right now, it's like we spread apart because, we're scared to say that we're autistic. But I believe that we need to start to group together and start to educate people and,
I've noticed a rise in communities online
yeah,
for autism.
Neurodiversity and stuff
Yeah.
like that, so.
When I first found out, it was like great to like deep dive into the internet and get all these autistic perspectives, and I connected with that online. But then when I went in real life and I started to meet people or started to talk to people more, I felt just kind of isolated again, and I felt kind of like that same thing. I think it's just the same thing. If I'm in a group of neurotypical people, if I'm in a group of autistic people, I'm just gonna still kind of feel alienated, and so I just kind of stopped trying after a while.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, is that if you don't exhibit, or I'll put it this way, if you are on the spectrum of autism and you don't exhibit a lot of those symptoms, but you are still nonetheless like autistic and thus like socially different from neurotypical people, you're going to have a bit of an issue communicating with other autistic people and also with neurotypical people, because, I mean, obviously you will, because that's how that works. The problem here is, of course, that autistic people are also flawed human beings and can also be exclusionary and awful. It's just that they're less likely to, because they've had that happen to them, so they know what it looks like, and some of them even know how to not do it. But, not all of them. I'm certain that some groups of autistic people are very exclusionary to people who are not fully autistic, whatever that fucking means. Like a lot of groups online, especially, like if you find like a Discord server for people who have like specific mental illness or whatever, or even just who are like transgender, like they'll be super gatekeepy about it, because it's like you have to meet these certain criteria to be this way, and if you don't, then you can't use that label. It's not available for you. Fuck you. And I want to clarify before I go on, being transgender is not a mental illness. I do not believe it's a disability. I just think that it just makes you like part of a minority group, which is, I guess, a form of disability by my broader earlier definition, but like it's not an inherent thing that is, it's something that you gain as a result of your experiences in life. Anyway, and your like, willingness to like socially or medically transition or whatever. It's not like something that is necessarily inherent to you, although it is inherent to many people. I wouldn't call it like a disability because you can mask without necessarily feeling like a piece of shit all the time. Although it's not a great idea to do that regardless.
It helps when you don't have to explain yourself to others and you can just relax and hang out without any judgment.
That's mainly the thing, right? If you don't have to explain your shit, then you can just chill. My thing is, I'm happy to explain my shit because I know most people don't get it. I'm aware that, in a way, I'm accommodating to neurotypical people who don't understand the shit that I go through on a normal basis. And I mean, most of the time it doesn't like affect my social life because I've very much learned to recede back into this sort of more social role. But like, people will sometimes like, sort of ask like, what the fuck is going on with you, man? You okay? And most of the time I'll be like, I'm okay, but like, this is my stuff that's going on with me for the most part. I don't have it all figured out. And most of the time they'll be like, oh, that's super hard. I'm so sorry for you. And I'll be like, no, it's really fine. It's not that big of a deal. It is what it is. I've gone through it. I'm continuing to go through it, and I'm fine. It's like people will treat it as though I'm like severely depressed or whatever, which I was at one time, but I've gotten over it by this point. But like people will view it as though I'm like severely depressed, and like they'll like assume that I have some like nascent suicidality to me that's just like unseen, and I don't. I'm very afraid of death. I would prefer not to think about that right now, but it is nonetheless something that some people will assume about me. They'll just kind of assume that all mental health issues are depression, and that all depression means like you're going to be suicidal, which is not correct, by the way. I don't know if I had to say that out loud, but just in case, there you have it. Although if you've made it this far in, I really doubt that, I really quite sincerely doubt that you are really in any way unaware of that fact, because I have ranted about a lot of nuanced shit, but I'll continue.
Honestly.
That's true. You're so right, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, guys, that's a wrap.
All right, that was the whole video. I want to say I'm pleasantly surprised. This time, Jubilee wasn't highlighting any very specifically fucked up shit going on. They weren't like specifically going like, "Hey, conspiracy theorist, talking to this camera," which is a good thing. Nobody said any like openly stupid, shitty stuff, which I'm glad for. I mean, there was a couple of things in there that was like, I'm not so sure about that. That's a little flubbernucked. That's a little bit of a weird opinion, but like everyone's a product of the circumstances that they've experienced in their life. Everyone's a product of their like life circumstances and the things that they've been through. So, you know, like I'm obviously going to have a different opinion from some of these people because they've had different lives than I have. That being said, if you vehemently disagree with me, you can shout at me on Discord. Link down below. You can join there. It's a fun time, the blank slate. Now that we've finished with this video, I can just sort of wrap up the stream because I have been going for almost an hour and 45 minutes, and I desperately need to go get something to eat. So yeah, that's been the stream. I hope you're all feeling well. I hope everyone who's watched this is, not feeling too weird about that whole thing. I do want to say, before I go, if you're neurotypical and you've made it this far, good job, first of all. Congrats. But also, like, do take some effort. Do try to, like, internalize to yourself that not everyone's going to be exactly the same in how they interact with other people. And that goes for mental disability, physical disability, minority status, religion, like all that shit changes the way that you communicate and interact with other people on a daily basis. And even if you're like hegemonic to a fucking T, like if you are straight, white, cis man with no like you were born like middle class or maybe upper middle class or maybe rich, even if you're in that group of people, like I don't hate you for being that way, but like you should try to learn how to interact with people who aren't like that. Like all of the people who aren't like that, not just like some of them, like sort of selectively, like that you're kind of more comfortable with, because not everyone is going to be a type of person that you're comfortable with, I'm sorry to say. That being said, have a good day.